Aron. So great to have you on the podcast. How are you today?
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Before we dive in, I want to have just a quick highlight of your background. Tell us about that, and then just a quick general overview of Runa, and then we'll go into today's conversation.
Sure. So a bit about me. I grew up in London. I have family that owns some independent retail stores that I grew up working in, and bakeries, groceries, and that was really relevant for kind of seeing how consumers purchase and access goods and services day to day, and kind of really informed a lot about how I think about payments. Started my first business at 17, my second at 24. I then studied at university before working in payments at a mobile payments company called Zapper, and then I started Runa. So quick pot of history there. But lots of different experiences along the way that kind of inform how I've reached this opportunity and think about building the business, which we can go into another time.
I love it. Well, I'm excited to have you on. Let's dive right in with kind of something I wanted to tee up the conversation with. So, from your perspective, what do you see as some of the biggest limitations of today's legacy payment infrastructure, and I guess especially when it comes to business payouts?
Yeah. So to answer the second half of your previous question, so Runa is an infrastructure that enables businesses to pay out to consumers. We're kind of building the next generation of payout experiences. And so we have some good points of view on this. I think the biggest limitation that we see of legacy payment infrastructure isn't just that it's slow or expensive, but that it was never really built for businesses to send money at scale to consumers. It was built for consumers to spend money, like one transaction at a time, but not for like these mass, low value, high velocity payouts. So that's like a fundamental mismatch. So if you think about it, like debit cards, ACH, Swift, they're all designed for like these pull-based payments or commerce, but modern businesses, especially the companies that we serve, which are software platforms that integrate us for payouts, they need to push money instantly, globally, intelligently for any number of reasons, to creators, gig economy workers, refunds, rewards. And when you try and use yesterday's rails for these modern platforms, kind of like connecting a fire hose with all this modern capability and capacity to like a garden hose, which are like the old rails. So like you see billions locked up in capital, broken customer experiences, lost loyalty. We have some research coming out soon, like a hot take or breaking news, that gig workers will actually slow down their work with a platform if a payout arrives late, and many actually will leave. So yeah, if your Uber driver gets paid late, or your incentive platform and the payout takes a week, you're burning trust and revenue every minute. And you really need to think about the payout experience as something that's an infrastructure. It's the product itself, right? It's not just an afterthought.
So, modernizing payments is a popular phrase, but from your point of view, like, what does it really look like in practice?
Yeah, I think it gets thrown around a lot, but I think for me or for us, it means instead of putting a slick UI on top of like a dusty old core, it's really about changing how money moves, not just how it looks when it moves. So what do I mean by that? Like most modern systems kind of still rely on like 1970s logic and 1990s rails. And you could think of it as like putting Apple Pay on top of a fax machine. It looks a lot better, but it's still an outdated underlying system. So to modernize payments practically means three things: like real-time settlement, not batch files at midnight, like programmable infrastructure. So like APIs that treat money like software with all the flexibility and capability, and interoperability across different asset types. So whether it's dollars or gift cards or stable coins or airtime credit, and manage all of that on the same ledger. And like if you can do that, if you're a global platform, you really want to be able to pay anyone anywhere instantly, not just be left working with old systems. And if you don't do that, you're not just behind, you eventually become irrelevant for the reasons we mentioned before. And so like the next generation of fintechs aren't just fighting over the front end features, they're actually rebuilding the stack at like an atomic level. And so, that's what we're doing at Runa. Like we're replacing this patchwork of legacy rails and this like unified system for a modern way that modern businesses want to operate. So it's not just faster, it's foundational. So modernization means changing the foundations and turning payouts into a competitive advantage.
Now, would love to hear from you too. Like, what's one legacy assumption in payouts that the industry should really rethink or start to move past?
Yeah, I think the assumption that I see the most is that payouts have to be cash or like cash in kind into your bank account. And like for decades, we've treated money as like this monolithic thing. It's pounds, it's dollars, it's in a bank. But the reality is that people don't necessarily want cash. They want the thing that cash gives them access to. They want the utility. They want the flexibility to get the thing that they need. So specifically, like if you can deliver a $50 gift card instantly, that can often feel more valuable than like a $50 bank transfer that takes 3 days. Or like an airtime credit in Nigeria might outperform a remittance in terms of speed or usability or delight, or like a USDC payout to a wallet might empower a freelancer in Argentina better than through the Swift network. So, like, if we keep assuming cash is king, as in like money into your bank account, we end up ignoring the rising demand for diverse, purpose-built payout methods that, fit the context and the needs of that recipient in that moment. And the Runa, like, we blown past this idea of cash only mindset. Like, we built infrastructure for any form of value, cash, stablecoin, crypto, debit, pay to bank, airtime credit, whatever it is, so that they're all equal citizens on our network, because like the future of payouts isn't necessarily about the cash money, it's about the relevance to the user and the use case.
Now, I want to kind of shift focus around rethinking loyalty, right? This is a topic that you've spoken at quite a bit in the past, but beyond just the points and the discounts, which, you know, totally agree. What does the future of customer engagement look like to you regarding loyalty?
Yeah. So I think it's similar insofar as it's not about points, it's about the utility of what you're receiving. So like if you think about a loyalty industry, it's kind of stuck in a time warp of points that expire, discounts that no one uses, this kind of offers that are buried in an email somewhere. And in the meantime, consumers, their expectations are shifting. They want instant relevant, and relevance being the key word, like liquid value. So real rewards like right now, not just cash back next month. And there's actually some data around this that's quite interesting. Like 73% of consumers say that rewards are more likely to drive loyalty when they're delivered immediately and in a format that they can use instantly, not like locked up in something that they have to jump through 3 or 4 hoops on. And I think like you look at Amazon's buy with points or Square's merchant offers, it's all about moving towards like this embedded, spendable, contextual value. Or like if you think about Gen Z, I think it's nearly half say that they'd rather get a crypto or gift card than traditional rewards, because this is the other thing that's changing. They're all becoming digitally native. It's all becoming borderless. It's not about plastic and mystery points anymore. It's about the real time and capability. So like if you think about a loyalty budget for the next generation, or like if brands don't evolve and keep, pouring billions into these kind of outdated programs, consumers will leave them. And so when you kind of go back to your question about like rethinking loyalty, it's about providing an outcome for the behavior, but an outcome that's actually relevant for the end user in a more meaningful way. So for us at Runa, we're turning loyalty into this like dynamic, instant, rewarding experience where the user can choose whatever matters to them in that moment, like instead of locking them up with frankly sometimes useless points or rewards. You want to think about how can you engage a modern customer. You want to give them the freedom and the immediacy to get the value and the goods and services that are at the end or behind the curtain of the cash.
Are there any standout brands or platforms that you think are really setting a new standard as it relates to loyalty?
Yeah, I think I like the online gaming world, like e-gaming, not gambling. So one brand that I think setting a new standard there is Roblox. So really interesting. Like most people think of it as this kind of kids gaming platform, but they're building one of the more interesting or even advanced loyalty systems on the planet. They don't just give you points, they give you a currency, but that currency has like real utility, and it's quite interesting. It also has emotional stickiness and it has value in the ecosystem. So like it's tied to usage, it's tied to utility, and the more players earn and the more they spend, and the more they spend, the more they go and earn again. Even if they're cashing out, they're seeing the whole platform as something that provides a tangible reward, not just a promo. And yeah, I had like 3 million creators who have made something like 750 million on Roblox in 23 alone, right? But it's a payout powered economy. It's not like it's just a gimmick. So that's a real interesting like use case or case study, I guess, where you can create real stickiness. I think they have like the average user spending more than 2.5 hours a day on Roblox, because while most brands are trying to, I guess, for lack of a better word, bribe consumers with loyalty, Roblox is building like a belonging to their product through the loyalty program. So they are enhancing their offering, they're enhancing their entire experience, what the user actually wants, versus just saying, you can take an action or you use our product and then you get something completely disconnected from it.
Interesting. I would love to get your take to Aaron on flexible and instant payouts. They play such a factor in building a stronger, like deeper relationship with customers. How are they doing that though?
Yeah. So I think it comes back to the flexibility point where I'll give you a real example. One of our customers is a fast growing health brand. And they ran a campaign where they rewarded all the customers with $25. And like traditionally would have sent like some kind of coupon, a voucher like days later. Instead they used Runa to instantly send a payout where the end user, the recipient, could choose Amazon credit, Uber Eats, Apple, even other stores of value. And we had like one piece of feedback via a customer where one woman replied to their survey saying, I was going to grab there was a Spotify voucher to like listen on their commute, but then they saw there was like an option to get a course which they were interested in learning about a skill. And then they turned that $25 into a new skill and then used that to perform better in their work later on. What was kind of feedback was, I could have just done the normal thing and got my Spotify, but here was an opportunity to move myself forward and get more meaning out of this payout. So when you think about the relationship being built stronger, the magic of flexible payouts is that when people get to choose what matters to them, then that small reward has like a real outsized impact. And you're not just building loyalty, you're unlocking their own agency to do what they need to do with their own life. And that's what creates like the lifetime or long or lifelong relationship, I guess, with those customers. And there are like lots of stats to back this up. I think like 78% of consumers say the ability to choose the reward makes them feel more valued. I think something like 60%, and we've done some experimentation with this as well, that's roughly the same, would say that being able to switch brands when they receive one thing and want something else will increase their engagement. So like, in short, if your brand can't deliver the value in real time and the flexibility, someone else will. And maybe this is too far. I'm going to throw it out there anyway. Flexibility is almost like the new intimacy between the brand and the consumer. Like it shows the consumer or the customer that the brand cares about delivering something they want and not just a transactional relationship where it's pretty transparent and meaningless.
Interesting. Aaron, I want to switch we've kind of had three different buckets into our conversation today. I want to switch to kind of a different area. It's an area that you've kind of touched upon a little bit already, but I want to get down to some of the frictions within it. And then hear, how Runa is kind of working in this space. So when you have a business or a platform and they're trying to move money globally, what's typically, I know you've mentioned some parts, but like what's the most common point of friction they tend to encounter?
Yeah. So I think the most painful and common one is complexity. So like, let's take an example. Like you can send an email to anyone in the world in under a second. But if you try and send $100 to someone in India or Brazil or Nigeria, you're suddenly like knee deep in issues like control currencies and exchange rates and bank codes and compliance checks and fees that could eat like half of that value. And so, I'll give you an example from one of our customers. We have a US tech platform and they wanted to reward all their global freelancers, these writers, these designers, and it'd be simple, right? Like send them the reward. But then they had to set up before working with us, like 5 different payout providers and deal with like different IBAN and bank details, which some of the freelancers didn't even know what they were. And then they had failures and then they lost, loyalty along the way. And why? Because like someone in Manila doesn't have a bank account. The person in Sao Paulo doesn't receive USD. The woman in Lagos needs airtime credit, not PayPal. And so like you have this death by complexity of like, from a technology perspective, what should take seconds actually is like barricaded and tied up in all these different friction points. And like the irony of all of this is like you can probably move value or money faster in like a video game, like we were talking about before, than you can in the global finance system or financial system. And that's what we're trying to fix, right? We're trying to make sending digital money and value to people as easy as sending an email, but in a way that's instant, intelligent, contextualized, in the local language, if you want to think of it that way. Because anything less than that is just like a bad user experience.
How would you say that Runa's approach to cross-border payments really differs from traditional systems? I know you said what you're, working to build or even other fintech solutions. It doesn't just have to be traditional systems, but, what would you say that kind of differentiator is?
So I think for us, like if you look at traditional systems first and contrast us, those traditional systems move money across borders like it's still like the 70s or 80s. There's a maze of banks and intermediaries and fees and compliance and friction. And even most fintechs are forced to be like wrappers on top of these old pipes. So like new great interfaces, but fundamentally on old systems. So and they modernize the interface, but not the infrastructure. And so with us, it's an infrastructure answer where we didn't just start with the banks. We started with a blank slate, and we asked like, if you could move money around as easily as information, what would that look like? And so we built a new network, not just for the traditional fiat rails, but for any kind of value. And that's all instantly exchangeable, all programmable, all by design, because we built our own ledger, we built our own connections to merchants, we built our own connections out into the different stores of value out there. And I guess you could give us an analogy of like traditional payouts are like mailing a letter. Like you need the local post office, the stamps, the envelopes, and it takes days. And Runa's like sending a WhatsApp, and because we own the end-to-end connection between every party, so no matter where you are, it's instant and borderless and just works. And that's important because we live in a world where we have consumers globally working with businesses, and those businesses have to be global from day one. But the money is still like stuck in traffic, so to speak. So we're kind of not trying to fix the old system. We're trying to build our new infrastructure to have a system that sees value as something that's fluid and intelligent, and something that we're already delivering on by being able to have our own ledger, our own connections between every party, and owning the entire flow of funds creates an entirely different and nuanced and contextual relevant experience for the end user, and a very simple, cost-effective, easy way to do business for the company sending out the money.
I have one last question for you, Aaron, before we wrap up here, and this is where, drum roll. Uh, do you believe we're on the path to a truly seamless global experience, or do we still have some major hurdles that we need to clear in order for that to happen?
Yeah. I think everyone says the future of payments is about faster pipes and making plumbing the problem. Just make those pipes faster, cheaper, and smoother, and we'll have like a global payments network. But like I think maybe, if I dare say it, solving the wrong problem, because I don't think the real hurdle is the speed limit. I think it's the language barrier. So what I mean by that is, you know, you want a global payments network. We all call money something different. Money isn't the same thing in every country or every economy or every context. So like in the US, it's direct deposit. In Kenya, it could be M-Pesa airtime. In Argentina, you probably want some USDC to hedge against the inflation. In India, it's like a prepaid card or UPI credit. In the Philippines, it could be like a remittance picked up at convenience store. Like money doesn't mean the same thing everywhere. The problem isn't necessarily moving it. It's how it translates across these different borders and cultures and systems. So I think in some ways, we're definitely on a path with a lot of the investment happening in fintech to globalizing commerce and enabling payments. But I think the way the market is moving is slightly different to where that investment's going. And we're not on a path to like a seamless global payment experience, because if all we do is upgrade the existing wires, we end up providing, I guess, money that doesn't translate depending on the context. So we need to think about the entire concept of what a payout is. It has to be flexible, intelligent, but most importantly, local, and local to the context or the use case that the recipient needs. And I think there are paths to getting there for sure, and that's what we're definitely at Runa trying to drive towards. And I think the market is becoming more globalized, but until that problem is solved, we won't get like a unified global network, because there's so many differences and so many languages and variations. There is no universal language just yet.
I love it. Aaron, really had a fun time chatting with you here today. Thanks for sharing some knowledge with us. I know our audience will really enjoy it. But wishing you and the rest of the Runa team all the best of luck, and hopefully we can chat again in the near future.
Likewise, it was a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.